I'm going to start with an extract from an essay that a lot of people had questions about how I knew that I didn't want to be married, because during the process of writing this book, I came to own that I had been kind of not being truthful with myself. And when, people ask single women of a certain age all the time, why aren't you married, or when you're going to get married? And the standard answer is, oh, I haven't met the right guy, or I'm waiting for the right one. But I realized through writing this book and being more honest that I've met the right man many times. I just had to own that marriage wasn't an institution that was very important to me. So I'm going to read an extract of sort of how I came to that conclusion, because it's been a topic that has come up, and I think many women have been very open with me since touring this book about having similar feelings about the construct of marriage. I have managed to fall in love twice in the 3 years I have lived overseas. Although I have been in 2 different regions of the world for these 3 years, both of my loves have been passionate West African men. One bae had only left Africa when he moved to Asia, and the other bae had only traveled within the continent, venturing out past his own country only once. By West African too, I had become ever more clear on who I was and who I was not. Who I was, an American woman who, without a doubt, was descended from the continent of Africa. Who I was not, a woman who was interested in upholding the values of African culture that advertised itself as family-centered, but should really be branded as patriarchy peddling. I remember coming to this conclusion when I narrowly escaped marriage to my Ghanaian boyfriend. We were in the early part of the relationship where there is little time for argument, because all the sex and post-coital confessions of love took up what few hours were left in the day after work. The first time we had a significant disagreement, he announced, "I don't want to discuss this anymore. You need to stop talking." And that's always the spot. Friends who know me are like, "Is he still alive, girl?" So what happened next? He dead, right? Yes, he's still alive. He limping around a crop. He turned away from me as if I were a petulant teen who had overstepped her bounds. I felt it my duty to disavow him of the erroneous assumption he had made about the woman he loved. He seemed uncomfortable with my ignoring his edict to shut the hell up, but remained silent as I explained to him he was dating a 40-year-old woman and not a 14-year-old child. I would not silence myself because he decided it was too much emotional work to address the conflict we were having. He listened, although grudgingly, as I continued to state my concerns about our relationship. He presented his, and we came to a resolution that I knew would only temporarily solve the problems we were having. As we kissed and made up, I allowed this thought to rest on my mind. Our love is not long for this world. This man is a damn fool. Throughout my early womanhood, I assumed my ambivalence about marriage was only because there were other things I wanted to do before I actively sought a husband. Then came Nigerian bae. Through this relationship, I came to accept that I was not just indifferent to marriage. I was disinterested in it. Falling in love with 2 men who adored me and who were committed to commitment even more than they were committed to me made me be more honest about what I had been claiming was a core belief. I value marriage. My 3 years abroad have presented me with opportunities to live up to this belief, and each time my choices have shown otherwise. Sexism aside, Ghanaian Bey was a hardworking man who made me feel protected and loved. He had shown me several times that he was capable of more open-minded ways of coupling that flouted the strict gender roles prevalent in many parts of the continent. During one of the arguments that followed our first major one, he thanked me for telling him exactly why I was angry, instead of appeasing him with silence. I could have worked on his mindset even more so over the years. He seemed a willing enough participant. But my life abroad had confirmed that I was more than enough for me. I didn't fantasize about building together. I felt already built, and quite well, too.
All right. There's a whole lot to unpack in that.
Yes, yes.
So you guys, hey, have at it. Questions.
Let me have it. Let me have it.
No, I just basically agree with everything that you wrote, because it's so many women that feel that way. And when in our society, if we feel that way, a lot of people think less than of us, and like something is lacking if we're not in a relationship or if we're not married. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you want to do that? So it's like, reading that from you, it just kind of hit home, and I'm like, cause that's me too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. I do think that you're right. That I think, in particular in today's time, and I had this conversation with one of the women from the other book club discussion, Angela, who was in Sisters in the Story. We had a separate conversation about how many choices and options women have nowadays, and how what the benefit of legal partnership for our mothers and grandmothers generation, aside from just love, the benefits that come with marriage are no longer beneficial in some ways, or we can achieve all of the things that our mothers and grandmothers could not without a husband's signature or a husband's presence. We can do all of that now. So when you take out of the basic the practicality of a legal partnership, women can achieve all of that and more. And especially in today's time, more women than not are delaying marriage until their early 30s. So by the time you're in your early 30s and you have been educated, you have worked, you have probably traveled a little bit, you have probably bought a vehicle, a home, an apartment or something, you have developed this whole entire life. And the idea that you should be sort of fiending for and searching for a husband to give you all of these practical things you can get on your own is kind of, it's null and void at this point. So when I think about particularly those two extracts that I read, and the two men who I could have married, like I always say, I was an attractive Black woman in Africa with an American passport. I could have been married literally 15 minutes after I got off the plane.
No.
And that's and not to like some green card grabber, like a legitimate middle class African who had gone to university, who was looking to to build, so. But when I think about it, when I've had the opportunity, even when I was still in the States, I've only been back in the U.S. for about 2 months. When I was still in the States before I left, having an opportunity to marry, and it just occurred to me, at this point, there really is no benefit for me to do paperwork on any union. I don't see, other than love, which you can do across the street. You can live across the street from me and love me. Other than like love, I don't necessarily see how that structure will benefit me. And I'm not disparaging any woman, man who wants to do it, even if you really are like, okay, I don't see it as being practical, but this is something I want. Lovely. Do you invite me to the wedding? I'm gonna be there. If there's an open bar, I'll be there early. Right. But what this story or this narrative that gets told about being especially a Black single woman of a certain age, and the little carrot of marriage that is dangled in front of us, sometimes overtly by single men or by the media that continues to write this story of how sad we are because we ended up single. I find it bizarre because there really is it's not a carrot for me. Like, I'm not anti-marriage, but I just don't see it as something that truly has value for me and what I want to do with my life.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything to it?
No, I agree with you. Like, I could see myself in a lot of what I was reading, and you hear those familiar questions. And I'm hoping, though, that now that I have reached 40, that this will stop.
I'm grown now. I'm not just grown. I'm grown. Can y'all believe I know what I want at this point?
Right, exactly. I'm like, uterus is neat. I'm ready for it to come out. It's of no use to me at this point.
Good. Take it out. Good.
I always said somebody could have mine.
Right. Do they have a donation place?
Right. Yep.
Exactly. Like, I'm good. I've gotten I'm gonna get out of it. I'm good. You can take it.
Right.
That I think that speaks to even a larger issue of how women, and especially Black women, are just not believed. It's just, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's our pain in a hospital or in a doctor's office, whether it's, and especially about our condition, whatever our condition is, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, whether it's angry, whatever it is, we're not believed in terms of what we desire.
Right.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that, Kimberly, because I do think that is an undercurrent in a lot of what I write about, and the reason why I felt this book needed to be documented, because there is a pretty aggressive and dogged campaign to convince Black women that what they say they want, if it's not in this box of respectable heteronormative partnership, to convince Black women that they don't really want that. And if they think they want it, it comes from a place of brokenness, or it comes from a place of dysfunction, as opposed to, no, I just said I don't want it. And I think when you say, and I think that's why it took me a while to truly own my truth and write it in this book, because so many people question you and doubt you. If you say, I don't believe in God, I'm a humanist, I'm a secular humanist, they say, well, what do you mean by that? And you don't really mean, like, yes, I just said what I meant. I meant exactly what I said. If you say, I have never had the urge to give birth, I don't, like, my womb doesn't catch fire, like some of my friends say, oh, my womb is on fire when they see a cute baby. I don't have any of that. I have no desire. And at 44, I have absolutely no regrets. I know if I were to ever pop up pregnant, I'd be down at the clinic getting a procedure done. I'm clear on that. And people know, well, you don't really mean that, but what if your sister died and your nephews had nowhere to go? Like, people just won't believe the words that were formed in your head and then came out your mouth. Like, they just won't believe it, particularly, again, if you are a Black woman. Like, surely you cannot be telling the truth. Surely you don't mean this. What you mean is that.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. And then they try to find out, well, what's wrong with you if you don't want to have kids or want to be married. Well, what's wrong with you? I don't know. What's wrong with you?
Right. And it seems like they would be more accepting of a person that acknowledges motherhood is not for them. We have so many kids out here being abused and neglected. So I would rather someone know that they don't want that responsibility and not bring someone into the world than to bring them into the world and not take care of them.
Right.
Kenya, can I just tell you, I have been saying for years, because the precursor to No Thanks is my blog, Yet Another Single Gal. And I didn't write regularly on my blog. I've had the blog for about 10 years. And the first 4 or 5 years, I just wrote something whenever the spirit moved me. So it wasn't consistent. But I wrote several times throughout the course of that blog about the people who would at one point go wax poetically about how motherhood is the most important job you will ever have. You have to give so much. There is no greater job. And in the same time, try to convince me to take on this job that was so important. And I would say, shouldn't. Because I'm just thinking, if I'm interviewing the CEO for a company, and I said, this is a very important job, sir. We got 500 employees who are relying on you. We need you to be at the top. We need you to be at the top of the game. We need so much from you. And he would have said, I mean, am I going to try to convince him? I'm not going to try to convince him. I'll be like, okay, thank you for coming. You're right. You shouldn't work here. So you should not. A woman who has to be convinced to be a mother, who has to ask you all these questions and has to ponder, like if she's even on the fence about motherhood, let her ass stay there.
Yes.
And when she get off that fence, just ask her some more questions. Make sure
Are you sure?
Like, make sure she got off that fence for her, and not because she tired of people bullying her, not because she tired of having to start over again with a man she loved because she told another one nothing has changed. Like, make sure she really getting off that fence because she wants to do this, because that's crazy to me how people will try to convince you or tell you. I've had people tell me before, well, you're overthinking it. Like, if you just have a baby, you'll see. And I'm just like, women who don't want babies shouldn't have babies to see if they really don't want babies.
Right.
You can't turn them back in.
Right.
Get your money back.
Right.
That's so backwards.
That don't make sense. And it's not a puppy.
Did you let it hear you? I don't think.
I said I didn't want babies.
We can't hear you. I'm sorry, Trinique. We can't hear you.
She said she didn't want babies, but she ended up with 2. So how does she give them back?
Child, I have no answer for you. I'm gonna chant for you. I have nothing to offer.
That's another reality, though. People that have had children and get to the point of growth and development where they get, they move all of the voices out of the way and realize, I love my children, but I really never wanted to have children. And to be able to articulate that truth,
Right.
And live in that truth, that's something else that all of this Black women are punished for. It's almost like we're not encouraged to have children. We're punished because we don't.
Right.
Right. Well said. And particularly, I think we're punished because we don't. That really struck a chord, because I think that's very true. It's not even about encouraging you to have children. It's just like assumed you will. It's default, first of all. Like, you're gonna have some babies because it's a way for you to get around it. And basically, if you find a good Black man who will marry you, because don't nobody will marry you, you give him a baby. He's old, a baby.
And I mean, that's a salient point, and I think in many ways you touch it in the book. In many ways you touch it. The notion of no one wants us unless you conform to who we want you to be. Right? So the Black woman is in service to others. That's her place in the world.
Exactly. Can I tell you, that's exactly why my publisher and I came to an agreement on this title, because the title I submitted the manuscript for, she told me it wasn't going to sell no books. She said, it's whack. It's 200 no's. It was I Choose Me. But when we talked about the title that would be better for marketing and it'd be more catchy, she said, no thanks. And then she gave me 3 subtitle choices. And I talked to the one other person who had read this book besides me and the publisher and the editor that she had to read it. And Black, female, and living in the Martyr-Free Zone popped up at me immediately, because that's exactly, and I didn't even see it myself. The fact that my publisher, who's a white woman, came up with the title and the subtitle, she saw that a lot. This idea that, again, your purpose, part of your magic, part of your Black girl magic, a huge part of it is your ability to suffer and take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the team. Yeah. And you have no right to even renegotiate how you gonna suffer. You can't even negotiate the type of suffering. So if you opt out of the greatest way to sacrifice, rearing some children, and then you got a man who willing not to leave you when you had them children. He only not willing to leave you. He not only willing to stay with you, but he gonna help you. And you saying no, then you obviously, you crazy. Yeah. You are not allowed.
That's exactly how they push it. And then it's like now they even glorify, like, when Black women, when we have to struggle with men. It's like, you gotta see them when they at the bottom, so that you all can rise to the top together. And it's like, that's nothing to glorify. That's nothing to look forward to. That's nothing to just say, this is my goal. We just gonna keep struggling, this struggle of. And I saw like this meme, and it said Black women must die exhausted. And I said, that's the truth. Because
there's a lie.
Everybody.
I'm sorry.
Oh, man. And that's one of the things that I'm sorry, you about to say something, Trinika? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't say anything.
That's one of the things that, again, because I tend to date heavily Black men, not all American, from all over the diaspora, but particularly when I was in Africa, that's one of the things that became clear to me. My Western privilege granted me access to a lot more things than, especially the two men who I mentioned in that extract, who were not poor. Like, if they were dating me, they were the boys who came out the village, taught themselves English, probably went to the English medium school, because we wouldn't be able to talk if they didn't speak no English. So they were middle class, lower middle class by African standards. But when you are an American, particularly as an international teacher, and you teach in international schools in these quote unquote, I hate this term, but developing nations, you tend to have access to a lot. Your money goes a lot further. You are often being paid 2 or 3 times more than your educated colleagues, right? And your passport gets you a lot of privilege. Sometimes you can get around the continent more easily than actual Africans. So what that ended up doing was putting me in a place where I was dating wonderful men. They had their issues with patriarchy, but all men do. The Western ones just got better at lying about it. Right. They just got better at phrasing it different, because they don't want to get yelled at and called out, but they got the same shit with them, right? Right. But it was clear to me pretty early on that, again, making this legal gives me very little benefits. I stand to earn more from just having US Bay. And not legally bonding myself to you, although I know you will work hard. I know you have plans, etc., but it gets me nothing, because I have way more access to you. Basically, in the bargaining chips of this business proposal of a legal marriage, you have very little to barter with. And I don't do struggle love. I ain't doing it when I was 20. Why am I doing it now when I'm 40? It don't make no sense.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's this expectation that is, I think Gabrielle Union said this when she was interviewed after all that drama that happened with, what's the ball player she marries, Dwayne
Wade.
Oh no, she's married to Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, she's married to him, right?
Right.
And there was a drama happened years ago with the outside kid or something.
Yeah, baby with another girl. Yeah, while they were dating.
Exactly. And so I don't know if this interview happened right after that, but I remember just seeing something in the last few years where she was talking about that period of their relationship and how she's married to him now, and she's had to whole restructure what it means to be a wife. And she said, the way that we teach wife, we equate it with the ability to just endure an incredible amount of suffering. And I had to structure that and rethink about that in order to make my marriage work, because I was just like, no, I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. But that is the way wifedom is taught. You're a patriarchal assistant at best.
Right.
Sufferer in silence at worst.
Right. That's the
True.
truth.
Yeah. And that's your cherry on top. That you can say that you put up with all of that and you stayed.
You got chose. You got chose. That is your prize. Someone chose you and continue to choose you. And that is your prize.
Can you hear Shanika? You know you talk sound.
You gotta put some bass in.
You have to speak a lot louder.
You really gotta speak loud. You guys just yell.
Yeah.
The chosen part, I just don't agree with it.
So she said she doesn't agree with the chosen part.
And what do you mean? She doesn't agree that it's a benefit, or she doesn't agree that it's like what don't you agree with?
Not a benefit. Because
She
don't choose me, I choose you.
She said it's not a benefit. He didn't choose her, she chose him.
It's a benefit for me to let you be with me.
I agree completely. And I think we all know that when people marry, each person is getting a helpmeet, as the Bible would say, right? You're getting a helpmeet. So you have chosen me, I've chosen you. But the way it is promoted, and particularly again when you are a woman of a certain age who is dating without looking for that carrot, the way it's promoted and the way it, especially again, for Black American men who have internalized the campaign, whether they would admit it or not, whether or not they're even conscious of it. Black American men who have internalized the campaign that don't nobody want Black women.
Right.
Don't nobody want you. So the way they present it, even the quote unquote good ones who don't do it on purpose, the way it is presented is, I am giving you my name.
Oh, I don't want their name. I feel like that's too much paperwork to do after I've got. And they charge for that, so I'm just going to. So if I make the mistake and accidentally get married, because that's what it would be, an accident. I'm not doing any paperwork.
Well, when I got married, I didn't take nobody.
She said if I make a mistake and accidentally get married,
it would be like some drunken book club of I don't know something, because that's what it would be. Because I don't even want to live. I don't want to occupy my space with someone. And I'm like, well, if he could live in his own house and I could keep my house and we can get together when we want to, that would be fine. But
that's the exact way I feel. And I've seen that work. Like the woman I consider my stepmother, she and my father never married. My mother was my father's second wife, I think second or third. Well, basically, my father had been married before my mother, and when they divorced, and he started seeing Miss Bernadine, I think that Miss Bernadine has had some very honest conversations with me as an adult woman, especially once my father passed away. And one of the things she said was that your daddy proposed to me like every other year or so for the last 10 years of our relationship.
Wow.
And she was like, no, I'm good. And as long as I was growing up, my daddy had the house in Metairie and Miss Bernadine had a house in Gentilly. And she was good with it. Like when we came over for the summer, we would go on little trips and she would, do her wifely duties of combing our hair and fixing the food. But sometimes he'd be at her house, sometimes she'd be at his house. But she never married, owned her own house, paid for it outright. And one of the things that she told me as an adult a few years ago, like it just didn't make sense. Like he had 4 kids.
Oh man.
He had 4 kids. One of them had a mouth on her. That was me.
Oh man. Yeah.
And an ex-wife who was angry for reasons that were clear to me. She had reason to be.
Oh.
So she was like, why would I do that? He was nice and I liked him. But no, why?
Right. Yeah, that's a lot to commit yourself to someone and their problems legally.
Yeah. It is. It is a lot. But when you say, Keturah, that, and can't think of, I don't know why something is making me think of something in the book, but I just can't pinpoint it. You know, these kinds of things start before romantic relationships. These kinds of things start with interchanges between Black men and Black women, period. Just their inability to treat us with respect, you know, not being able to have integral relationships with you in terms of friendships or platonic friendships. You know, I say I call you and I don't. I say I'll help you, you know, do this and I don't. Just, you know, or just simple things. You know, I text you, you don't text me back. I don't want to go out. I don't want you to marry me. It's just, we're friendly. I mean, just simple things. Whereas if it's a woman that they're after, if it's a light-skinned, long-haired, damn near white woman, she gets treated really, really, really well. But if it's the who they consider fat Black bitch, she gets treated okay when I want something.
Right. That's
Hidden, you know,
just lay it down.
have others that they'll flaunt out in public, and then they'll have the other one in you know, they'll hide her. And it's like,
I'm just saying on a friend level, not even relationship level. It starts there on a friend level, just the disrespect.
Yeah.
And I would say too, because I'm thinking about, as you say that, I'm thinking about a guy who was very good friends, and we're still kind of friends now. But you know, the way life works, the older you get, you know, your life takes on other stuff. But especially when we were in college and a few years out of college, I just remember we were very good friends, and there were certain points that happens in a lot of heterosexual friendships where we kind of had feelings for each other, and it could have gone either way. And I think about why off and on for years, I had some really strong friendships around, and I really liked him more than a friend, but I never acted on it. And when I look back at it, is what you're talking about, Kimberly. It was, I don't even know if it was necessarily, he wasn't disrespectful, but it was the inability to act on anything, the sort of wishy-washiness, the not following through, which could be attributed to youth. I mean, he was in his 20s.
Disregard, dismissiveness, not valuing in the same way that you would value other women. I mean, we see it. It's not like we make this stuff up. We see how they treat other women.
But it's sad because now society, a lot of women do not know their worth. You tell a man up front, look, I'm not going for that. I'm not falling for that. And he can't do anything but respect it. But it's a lot of women that do not know their worth. Correct. And they're okay with being disrespected.
And I think there are a lot of women who truly have bought into you are not enough. Right, and as Black women, obviously, we have a very specific context. But I've been telling this story. Since I've been on tour. Before I left Shanghai, one of my coworkers at the international school where I was teaching, Chinese young woman in her maybe late to mid 30s, she basically told me, because we were talking about my book and what it was about. She actually said that she was afraid to read my book because she would call off her wedding.
Oh.
I was just like, this is the most awkward water cooler conversation I've ever had in my entire life.
Right. But she wanted to call it out.
And as we talked more, because I could feel that she really, really wanted to just tell someone who was an outside person who wasn't a part of her culture would probably pressure, because again, let me tell y'all, if y'all were in the People's Republic of China, you all would be referred to as single dogs. If you were over the age of 30 and you have not been married, you are called a single dog or a leftover woman. So I got the impression that she really wanted to talk to someone who wasn't from that rigid sort of pressure-filled expectation. And the more we talked about it, it became clear, much like you were saying, just she didn't know her worth, and she was allowing so much of so many voices that were not her own to dictate her wanting to marry this dude. And so she did eventually call it off. And she told some of the other teachers who were her friends. And then at the end of the year party, she got some brown liquor in her and started spilling all the tea.
Oh man.
Good for her.
She spilled all the tea. And one of the things that she said to me was that they're not a lot. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, but there are several teachers on our staff who are in unhappy marriages. And she said one of them in particular, when she said, I decided to call it off, that this is wrong. This is going to be wrong if we go forward. And my fiance stopped speaking to me and everybody's having a fit, but I decided to stop. And I feel like a weight has been lifted off. And she said one of our coworkers said to her, I'm glad you did that, because if you hadn't, you'd end up like me. Because this woman was in this marriage and she couldn't get out, because at this point, in-laws have been moved in to help care for the child. School fees have been paid at the English-speaking school, which means that child is now put on the track to go to high school or university in the West. An apartment has been bought in the most expensive part of Shanghai. So they in too deep now. So she was like, I'm glad you stopped that train before it went further, because I can't see an end out of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
After everything around you is telling you you're nothing, you're going to believe it. Because think about it. It's like if you've got 100-pound weight, bearing down on you, and you weigh 50 pounds, what's going to win?
Right.
That way. That way.
So, when I hear that about women, or when I see women that don't value themselves, it's not strange to me, because I would wonder, why would they value themselves in this culture? When everything around you is telling you that there's something wrong with you. You're either too much or not enough.
Right. Right.
Well, I know I'm hell.
I'm
okay with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's even true down to like the music, that our kids and sometimes that we listen to. It's like they always glorify other races of women, and then when you watch the videos, usually the love interest in the video is always light skinned or some other kind of exotic looking woman. Mm-hmm. So it's like they're basically saying that we don't even value our own black women. We're black men, but we don't even value our black women enough to even talk about them in a song.
Right.
Well, certain kind of black women. And it ain't just started with the music as in the last 30 years. That music was going on during my mama's time, and she's 75 years old.
Yeah.
You look at the women that were even in the groups, the way the women that were on in movies. It's always been a Eurocentric standard. That stuff, people talk about rap and stuff like that, and the hip hop, and the women scantily clad and they damn near white. I'm like, honey, you look back at some of them black and white. And
I'll tell you about the creepiest moment I had, and this is when it big colorism. I mean, I've never been one of those ridiculous people who denied that colorism was an issue. Obviously, it's a huge issue in all communities of color around the world. But what really set it off for me, I was in this restaurant in Harlem, and I forgot the name of it, but part of their decor was in the women's bathroom. They wallpapered the whole entire bathroom with covers of Jet, right? And when I tell you, I walked in, this is my first time going to this restaurant and going to the bathroom. I walked in and my first thought was, this is a very clever idea. Look, they're covering the bathroom in Jet. And I sat down, I was on the toilet, I was stupid on the toilet like this.
I bet.
Because it was so, like, I don't know if that was their low-key way of making a statement, because if it wasn't, they made a statement, because it was so disturbing.
Yeah.
Not even somebody my color.
Yeah.
So, and this was a pretty big bathroom. It's one of those single stall ones, but you had to find a lot of covers of Jets to cover this wall. And it was just a sea of light-skinned girls. And it was just so jarring. I just sat there and really stared with my mouth agape, like, wow.
Ebony was the same way. Y'all remember Big Ebony? You didn't find Hattie McDaniel on the front of Ebony. This stuff has been going on a long time. Remember Jet Beauty of the Week? She didn't look like us.
And see, and that's generations and generations of people showing that the darker you are, the less valued you are in society. You know, and that's use music as an example. But that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Even to younger people, they're getting exposed. Yep. So it's like black, you know, the darker you are, black women, period, we have just undervalued for it forever, it seems like.
Oh, well, let's talk about size.
Oh, Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yes, indeed.
Right.
Hello.
Be like when a blind man gotta feel your wrist to see how thick you are.
And we ain't talking about thick. We ain't talking about thick. When I talk about size, because see, there's a difference between being thick and really large, like I am. There's a difference. And it's and like even now, it's because I'm not from New Orleans. I live in New Orleans, and there's thicker women are a little more accepted here.
Right.
My size is not accepted.
Yeah.
Right? What people like medically they call morbidly obese, which is ridiculous. But that whole thing, and black people, oh, we got it bad. Yeah. It starts when they're children.
Yeah. Yep.
How many kids they call chunky monkey?
Yeah. Yeah.
Girl, don't get me started.
Is there anything that you ladies want to talk about that you connected with the book, or questions about certain parts of the book that you want to share? So just what food for thought, or what parts of the book stuck out for you and resonated with you that you want to ask more about or talk more about?
I think for me, the entire book resonated with me. I agree with pretty much everything that you wrote. Even talking about not wanting to be married. I have a son, he's 19, but you know, I stopped at that one because I didn't want any more. And then to the religion thing, I'm going through that now. And it's like everything that you talked about just really resonated with me. Because it's like going back to what we were talking about when you say you don't want to have children and people assume that somebody did something to you. I was approached by a lady in Walmart that was a pastor's wife, and she was inviting me to her church. And I explained to her I don't attend church. And she said, "Who hurt you?" And I said, "Nobody hurt me. That's just my choice and my decision." And she spent so much time trying to tell me why I was wrong and why I needed to come to her church and all that stuff like that. And it's just, these are the things that we go through on a daily basis. So it's like the entire book just resonated with me.
I'm glad to hear that. And I think particularly, I think that's the last bastion too of tabooism. Although I think there is sort of acceptance if you don't go to church regularly, or if you're not a card carrying, I'm a Christian, Jesus said, there is still this expectation that you will at least give voice or give allegiance to the belief in a God being, particularly the way that God being has been constructed by Christianity. And if you say that you don't, and I think it's funny because people assume that people try to say you don't have a moral code because you don't go to church, you claim atheism or humanism, and I'm just like, if you need that religion in order to make you not be mean to people, then that says something about you.
Absolutely.
Like, I know some Christians who have great moral codes. I know some Christians who are evil, and Jesus himself would not want to hang with them. So but I think that particularly that was one of the things that I kind of felt would be the least accepted or the most questioned, because I was clear on who my target demographic was for this book. Like, I was not surprised by the people who loved it, not surprised by the book clubs who wanted to read it. I was clear on who it was. I didn't expect too much hoopla, but I did expect a pause on, you don't go to church, okay? I don't go to church either, but you don't believe in God. You claiming an A word. Like, what is this? What is this? Hoopala. I mean,
I differ on that, but I do respect people's decisions to make their own decisions, and I don't find anyone to be, evil, or they don't have a moral code, or oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? We are free thinking people, and you have the right to think and choose for yourself, and that's not going to make, because that would say, okay, if I do believe, and I believe you're bad because you don't, then like you said, what is it that I'm believing in?
Right.
That's what I was gonna say about the book too. It gives you a sense of whatever you think and feel within you, within your heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Right.
Forget what anybody else say. I don't care if it's great grandmama, auntie, whoever. Who cares? If that's what you feel wholeheartedly in your heart, it's okay.
Right.
And as I get older, that's me, because there's a lot of things, like my mama said, you don't never ask questions. Well, my kids do dumb stuff. My kids are older. I don't care, ma'am. I have to find peace within me. And if I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Right.
And you're going to have to respect it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
That was key to me too. This, I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't trying to encourage anyone to live my life. I wasn't trying to promote I was trying to promote owning your truth and living your truth. That's what.
And that's why you did a great job on it too, you know.
And being okay with it, and don't feel bad or how you feel or what you think.
Right.
Because a lot of people make you feel real bad about whatever, but
And if everybody was the same, the world would be boring.
Yeah.
Exactly. Be a snooze fest.
Right.
Isn't that your problem?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Y'all too boring.
Exactly.
Is that why I ain't got no man? I'm bored.
I'm supposed to be boring too.
That's why you single. You're boring. You're boring. Now stop being boring.
Oh my God.
I want to say, like, the last thing that I liked was when you talked about your experience working overseas. I like that you gave pretty much a very truthful view of your experience, because so many people romanticize working overseas, because I had considered it. And it's like, you don't think about the loneliness and, how you may have to be friends with people you really don't like just so you can have human interaction. And I'm so thankful that you brought that up.
You're welcome. And that was very important to me, because what I found in the expat community is there is a lot of, we out here, we balling. And those people, especially in the Black expat community, Black American expat community, those people who stay in the States, why they stay in the States? They stupid. The States they trying to kill us and things expensive, et cetera, et cetera. There is a lot of, I'm just smart. I'm clever. I figured out the way to fight, I figured out the way to win over white supremacy. Or I figured out the way, and you're like, actually, after your third or fourth trip to Bali, what the hell is the point of this? Like, I mean, you could stay abroad and you can have a great life. You can save a whole lot of money. You can have which is fine. But the reality is, once you settle in a new place, the stuff of life continues. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you fix yourself some food. I mean, but you're doing all this in the country in a language you can't speak, and you have no control over governmental rules, and so there, and like you said, there is too this very superficial coupling of friends. Like I said in the book, I've seen marriages occur simply because the dude was just there.
Yeah.
Really. He was just there. And while that happens, obviously, in country, when you're in your home country, happens because that's how loneliness works. What I saw a lot was it is even more personified and even more heightened when you are in a foreign country, particularly when you are a single woman. And I've actually seen married women who have been more lonely than I have been, actually.
Right.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that was clear, particularly I think because we're in an era now where the Black travel movement is a whole thing, and there are like so many. I've had on my podcast women who have quit their jobs to start traveling businesses, and now they have $1 million companies. So it is truly a thing, the Black travel movement, 21st century international travel, and I think that's wonderful. But I also think there has come this sort of arrogance and this superficiality and a little bit of lying about what that lifestyle is like, that it's not all sun up roses, and that, to be honest, it is the color of your passport that people are treating nice. They don't treat Black people nicer here than they do in the States. Have you talked to your African brothers? Then we can make a decision. So your Western privilege is buying you a lot of that, again, which is fine, but let's just be honest about that. So I just wanted to be very honest that it can be a very rewarding experience. It can force you to sort of really question who you are and what you value in ways that staying in your country probably couldn't. But at the end of the day, you just getting up and going to work and trying to avoid that crazy white girl who's sitting next to you now. Who's trying to be your friend, and you don't want to be her friend. And you didn't try to tell her that many times, but she's still trying to be your friend.
Same thing that we go through on a daily basis at every job.
Exactly.
Same thing. So the moral of the story is you better have peace in yourself.
Right.
Because wherever you are, there you be.
There you go. You're going to take you wherever you are. Like, I have said that so many times, and I have sat back and watched so many. I can see some crazy shenanigans have happened by people who obviously moved abroad because nobody loves them back in Australia or New Zealand or Texas. Like, nobody loved them. Or some shit was going real left real quick. And it was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to reinvent myself in China or Senegal. I'm going to go back to the motherland and find my people. And then they get there, and 3 months later, it's the same shit. Except they posted on Instagram and on the beach. But the same shit.
Yeah.
That's when you have to tell them, look, you had the same situation in a whole different continent. The problem is you.
Exactly. You could be going through this bullshit where you speak the language.
Right.
Yeah.
Understand somebody.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Well, folks, we are almost at the end of our time. Would you like to either ask one more question, or do you have another comment, something to kind of wrap us up here? This has been a wonderful, rousing, funny conversation.
Y'all those kids in class, well, I gotta separate. I gotta separate
exactly.
and put y'all at different tables. Like, I would love y'all to death. And when your parents came to conference, I'm like, this, she very smart.
Right.
Put them Shenanigans happen. When
and even if you separate them, they're gonna be looking at each other, dying laughing, just sniggling and giggling.
Exactly. Very good girls, but oh Lord, just a shenanigans.
Yeah. Want to, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We enjoyed reading the book. We really enjoyed talking to you today, to both of you all.
Yeah.
And great. I love this book. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Anybody else have a parting thought?
Do you have other books on the horizon?
That's an excellent question, ma'am. My next book, I want to be a travel memoir. I even have a name. It's called Don't Go, You'll Die. traveling solo while female. So I want to do I want to do a travel memoir. That's what I want. But as I start to conceptualize, the book really wants to be a memoir of my father's death. So we'll see.
Okay.
So he said, "Don't go, you'll die."
Well, he didn't say that, but when I say "don't go, you'll die," it's in reference to all the people who try to, again, stoke fear when you say travel alone, like as a single woman, like the things they imagine and fathom, like either you're gonna be molested or trafficked or worse, you'll be lonely.
Yeah, a lot too, and I get that. I get that a lot. Like, I can't believe you're going here. You going over there by yourself? You going to Jamaica by yourself? Yes, I am.
Don't you love it when they say, "Well, you don't know nobody over there"? That's the idea.
That's the whole point. I'm quite a friendly person. I meet people all the time because I'm just very gregarious. People like talking to me. It's cool. I'll make some friends.
Yeah.
That's quite a title.
Yeah. And so
Don't go, you'll die.
Don't go. You'll die. just people will tell you that, like, you're going all that way, and I'm like, baby, I could get raped going to work. Like, if I manage not to get shot up in a movie theater in America, I'm good.
Right.
I managed to live 30 some odd years in this country and not be the victim of a mass shooter. Right. I feel like I can go anywhere and I'll be good.
That's true.
You can go to the gas station or the grocery store and get shot up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Woo. My
So that is on the horizon. Either travel memoir, or if I feel like I can get it out and make it make sense, a memoir sort of about my father's death and how that shaped me and how his fathering of me shaped me. That probably what it's gonna be, because that's really what the book wants to be. So that is sort of on the horizon.
Sounds good. We'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you.